Welcome back to Follow the Compass North. Now, it's occurred to me that we say to follow the compass north. We've plastered it all over our channel, had a nice little intro scene added to our videos, but we have not discussed which north we want you to follow. And there's three main norths that I'm going to be talking about here today. The first is true north. True north is the point on which the Earth rotates, the axial point of the ellipsoid of the Earth. And I'm not trying to use fancy words here like ellipsoid and axial. Ellipsoid is just a sphere that's been squished down a little bit. The Earth is not perfectly round, it is a little bit flattened on the top. That is probably due to the rotation of the Earth and the centripetal forces that expand the equator out because gravity has lesser of effect on that sphere ellipsoid. Now that turning point is the point that we refer to as north and south on the bottom side. The way that we navigate requires us to create two-dimensional maps. Now with modern technologies, we can actually extrapolate the Earth in a three-dimensional sphere and use computer graphics in order to have these two line up, true north and grid north. However, typically when you're dealing with flat maps, charts, references, or any old style datum, WIGS 83, NADS 83, and WIGS 84, they're going to have some of these equations built in that cause there to be a discrepancy between the point on which we rotate and the north on the grids or on the map. Usually this is negligible. We don't need to factor this into our navigational expertise, but it's a nice little fact to pull out at parties. And no, I am not fun to have at parties. Now, grid north and true north tend to line up in the center of a map or a chart where they both point north. But as that flat chart expands outward, especially based on the scale, if it's a larger scale map and it shows more area, that scale is going to cause those grid lines to maintain north and south, whereas the true north should be canted in slightly. This discrepancy is that minor up to 1 degree discrepancy that you see with true north and grid north. What can be a little bit more accurate for you is using Polaris or the North Star. Polaris, the North Star, is only 0.75 degrees off of north. So if you were to take a time lapse of the night sky with Polaris centered on your camera, or even off-centered, you'll see the rest of the stars spin around it as we rotate beneath that point, that pivot point of Polaris. That's just a coincidence, but it's nice to know where this is at. Personally, I like to use the Big Dipper in Cassiopeia. It's about a thumb pinky distance away from, at full arm's length, from Cassiopeia to the North Star, Polaris, and back to the Big Dipper. This way I can use two constellations that are easy to identify to pinpoint the exact star that I'm looking for to get my true north, not grid north position. 0.75 of a degree is not that far to be off. In fact, during certain times of the night, those are going to line up and it's going to be less than. So this is a no greater than 0.75 degree offset because our typical compass is going to be within plus or minus 3 degrees from the factory anyways. And that's plus or minus 3 degrees from magnetic north, which is the next north that we're going to talk about. Now I've drawn out a rough interpretation of the globe here, flattened out as best I could because we wanted to talk about grid and true and it makes sense. But you'll notice that I've put this dashed line through North America, South America, all the way through hitting Africa, Europe, Asia, Russia, coming back down, hitting again, and passing through Australia. This line is what's called the Aegonic Line. The Aegonic Line has no magnetic declination difference between magnetic north and true north, which means if you're standing anywhere on or very near to this line and you pull out a compass, it will point towards the axial rotational point of this ellipsoid called Earth. That means that we can navigate very easily anywhere in these areas. I always thought it fascinating that the Aegonic Line passes through most major land masses. I'm not sure if this has to do with land masses and the magnetic influence of tectonic plates, or if it just happens to be a coincidence, but it makes navigation on land masses much easier. Now, where it causes trouble is when you start working away from this line, or these lines. It's a single line passing through, so I should say Aegonic Line, singular. As you work away from this Aegonic line, you start to run into isogonic lines. Those are lines that have declination off of true north to magnetic north. If you start working this way, it's going to be off one direction. If you start working the other way, it's going to be off the other direction. And you need to account for that when navigating. I'm going to do an entire lesson on accounting for magnetic north and true north when navigating when we do our navigational lesson. So we'll talk a little bit more about orienting maps or calculating the difference so that your compass points to the point that you're going to and not with a declination off, causing error over time. Now, if you have a naval vessel and you're sailing out in the ocean, you can run into declinations of 30, 40, 60 degrees. If you're down here off the tip of Australia and Madagascar, I've seen it up to 70 and 80 degrees off, where your magnetic declination is causing you to face east or west instead of north. This can cause massive issues for navigation in these areas. These days, if you're more of a GPS hiker and just want to follow the arrow or follow the trails, you can get away with just knowing true north and knowing and setting your GPS to true north. Adversely, if you are a GPS hiker who likes to use a compass, you can take the GPS and set it to magnetic north, and it will just automatically update the differentiation, the declination for you. So it'll tell you what your compass should be saying, and you can navigate and still maintain accuracy. However, if you're using map and compass only, this becomes a bigger and bigger issue. I look forward to the time where we can grab a couple of charts, head out to the woods, hit a few points, maybe time lapse, throw a drone in the air and show what I'm talking about, and make this make a little bit more sense in the field. But I wanted to cover the types of north here today. It's a nice fun one. I've got a slightly new setup I wanted to try today, and I feel pretty good about it. If you enjoyed today's video, please like, subscribe, or share. Anything you do that helps us out is greatly appreciated. So thank you, and have a great day.